Welcome to A Man's Perspective with Andres Garcia. Today, I am going to be having a conversation with Marina Vasquez. Marina has a bachelor's degree in criminal justice, and I have known her whole life. She's my cousin. So, Marina, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.
First, I love you.
I
Thank
love
you.
you.
Okay, so I'm gonna ask you a couple questions, and then we'll give me your answers, and we'll have a conversation based going from there.
Okay.
Okay, first, I want to talk about you had a traumatic injury a few years ago. Can you tell me about that? You know what happened?
Yeah, it's going to be 14 years.
Oh
It
wow.
occurred on January 12th, 2010. I was working on my master's degree and I started working at a group home with troubled teen girls. And one of my patients, she got a big boulder sized rock and she threw it at my head. She fractured my skull. I had bleeding in my brain.
Oh my goodness.
It took me 9 years. I had to learn how to walk again, how to talk again, how to basically live life all over again.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember how we were all praying for you. It was a very dark time in our family.
Yeah.
It was very tough. When the rock hit you, did anything happen? Did you lose consciousness? Did you?
So I remember every little detail of what happened. Sometimes I wish that I didn't remember things, but I do remember every single thing. We had just finished a group counseling session, and I walked outside of the group counseling session, and the girl was holding the big rock, and I looked up. Our eyes met, and I knew at that moment that she was going to throw it at me. I tell everybody I stared in the devil's eyes
Like you
because
knew, you could feel it. Like what told you?
you know how in the movies they always portray the devil with these bloodshot red eyes and you
Yeah.
can see the anger in him. That's exactly what it was. I stared into the devil's eyes and
Wow.
I just knew. I just knew, and she was close distance and she already had it in her hand. And at that moment, I knew all I could do was just turn. And I turned and the rock hit me on this side. At that moment, I don't remember feeling it, like actual hit me.
You didn't feel the.
No, I tell everybody like it was like God took me out of my body at that moment. And I don't know how, but with the force that she hit me, I would have thought I would have fallen off, this side. But for some reason, I fell to this side, and I remember waking up and had my right hand under my head, and then just laying there in a pool of blood.
Oh my
I
God.
can tell you, I felt all the blood coming out of me. I started feeling weak. I knew that if I closed my eyes, I would never see my daughters again. Like I knew that I had to, I'm sorry, and I get emotional.
No, it's okay. It's understandable.
I knew that I had to stay awake for some reason. But at the same time, I thought to myself, oh, I have a cut on my head. I'm bleeding, yeah, but as soon as I hear the ambulance, I'm going to be fine. Mind you, at that time, the scene was very chaotic. The other patients that were there started jumping her. They're trying to keep me awake, talking to me, trying to get a hold of my family at the same time. And I just could not feel my legs. I could not feel my body. I couldn't feel anything.
Oh
And then
goodness.
I remember hearing the ambulance, the sirens, and I remember when all the firefighters jumped out of the fire truck. I can hear them, and they were just looking at me like I just heard them say, "Where's all this blood coming from?"
Oh my God.
And I told them, it's my head. And so they said, okay. And I had my hair at that time was about this long, and I was on my side still, and they said, okay, we're going to turn you. And as soon as we turn you, all hands on her head. So at that moment, I mean, I remember the fear still, like just the fear of, like, is this it, God? Like, am I going to be okay? So they turned me on my back, and then that's when I started going into convulsions, shaking and everything. And they took me in right away to the ambulance, cut up my clothes and everything. And at that time, I wanted to fall asleep. I couldn't keep the fight, but they still kept shaking me and waking me up and asking me questions. Then I thought, okay, get me to the hospital. They're going to sew me up and then I'm going to go home,
Yeah, yeah.
And the ambulance was just hauling, oh, I can't say it. I don't think I say
Yeah, you
it.
can say
Hauling
that.
ass. The ambulance was hauling ass, and we're getting to the hospital, the trauma center. And at that time, I still didn't feel pain. I think I was in shock. I don't know.
That's interesting. You didn't feel the pain. You didn't feel the
No, I
impact. You
didn't
didn't
feel
feel.
any pain. It was, I don't know. I just didn't feel the pain. I don't know
Wow.
if it was because I was just in my mind, I was just worried, like, I'm going to be okay. Trying to just keep talking to myself, like I'm going to be okay. Until when I got to the hospital, the trauma center, I remember hearing, I still didn't feel pain. I remember hearing the neurosurgeon say she has bleeding in her brain. She has a fractured skull and she has bleeding in her brain, and we need to do surgery right away. So that's when the detectives came in and they started taking pictures of everything, of my head, all the blood everywhere. And that at that moment, I felt pain. And I remember them getting my hair and just pulling on my hair to try to see where the blood, the gash or whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And at that moment, I was screaming. I was screaming like just like it was the worst thing ever. And they couldn't give me anything for the pain because I was going to go into surgery,
Yeah, yeah.
And I remember telling my mom, like, I need to see a priest or something, like and the
Wow.
neurosurgeon is like, there's no time, and of course, I remember them making me sign paperwork to press charges and all of that, and then they wheeled me into the surgery room. And then I remember the cold feeling in the surgery room. And then after that, I don't know how long after, I don't know how long the surgery was, but the surgeon did tell my parents, like, if you guys believe in God, just know that he did whatever he could and the rest was up to God, And if I pulled through, chances are I'm going to be a vegetable, or I'm going to be paralyzed from my right side, or who knows what my quality of life was going to be.
Yeah, yeah. I remember that.
And I remember waking up in the ICU, and I remember the room was filled with everybody, all my cousins, everybody, people I hadn't seen in years, like your sister, I hadn't seen her.
Yeah.
And I remember I was in and out of consciousness at that time. And I don't even remember if it was that same day, the next day, I don't know. But I remember them asking me like to say my name, and I couldn't say my name. They said I would repeat numbers or something. So they kept taking me into, get MRIs to see if I was still bleeding in the brain. And then luckily, it started clotting or whatever. But yeah, I mean, I have a scar still from here to here. I have two titanium plates in my head. I have an inner ear fracture that they couldn't do surgery on. My jaw and everything was it felt like my whole cheekbone was like just broken or something, but they said my face was really swollen. But I had to learn how to walk again. I had to learn how to talk again.
Yeah.
I had to learn how to just live life all over again. And I did suffer from PTSD.
Yeah, really so. I mean,
And that was probably the hardest thing. Nightmares. I'd be afraid to go to sleep because I already knew that I was going to have a nightmare.
yeah.
But my PTSD got really bad to the point where I was just angry all the time. Suffering from a brain injury, I, I was just angry at everything, and I've always been in my faith, and I always said, you know, God use me so that other people can know who you are,
Yeah, yeah.
And then this happened. And then I always thought, okay, God, okay, I get it. Okay, this happened so that she can change her life. So that, she can understand like, hey, I don't want to hurt anybody else. I want to change my life and this and that. Well, my PTSD got really bad, and it got to the point where I wanted like somebody to just bump me the wrong way or look at me the wrong way
Yeah.
so that I can let out all that anger. And my heart got really cold. And at that moment, I knew, like, you know what? I have to forgive her. And I did. I forgave her. And then I realized, you know what? This whole thing wasn't for her to change. It was for me to change.
Wow.
And then I just changed my whole perspective on life. I changed my perspective on, why this happened. And I just realized, like, you know what? This was a gift. Like when people say, "Oh, I'm sorry this happened to you. I'm sorry," because I did. I lost everything. I went through a divorce. I had to sell my house. I didn't finish my master's degree. Talk about hitting rock bottom.
Yeah.
But at that moment, it was like, wow, like this changed me, you know. Um, they gave her 7.5 years, which was the
Wow.
max sentence that they could give her. She was a minor at the time. And the judge sent her to Texas to complete her sentence because they said supposedly in Texas she was going to be doing the full time. Well, 7 years came, and she has a unique name, and I won't say her name, but she has a very unique name. So the 7 year came, and I Googled her name. And let me tell you something. Before this 7 year mark came, I had a dream, and in my dream, I dreamt of Jesus. And I
Wow.
don't know, some people might think it's weird or whatever, or I'm not. But honestly, I died in my dream and I saw Jesus on the right side and he was reading a book to kids and he looked at me. And when I looked at him, I had this peace that you can never feel, only through Jesus. And when I woke up, I wanted to die again. Like I wanted to just be with him. And I didn't understand why I dreamt it. And the reason why I'm telling you this is because when the 7 year mark came and I Googled her name, I saw that she was already out. She was here in California. She had already been charged with other misdemeanors. Well, I was supposed to be notified when she was going to come into California.
Yeah.
And the DA's office didn't notify me. I called the DA's office, and at that time, the DA was still working. The same DA, she was still working at that time. And she remembered my story. She knows who I am. And she says, "I'm sorry. It must have been a system error. They should have notified you and sent you a letter, this and that, whatever." I found out she only served 2 years.
What?
And I had already gone like, this was, 7 years from then. So my PTSD was more under control. But at that time, when I heard her say she only served 2 years, I felt like the whole world was against me. And then I remembered about my dream and that peace. And it was like God was telling me, you know what, you're not by yourself. I'm here with you. Like
Yeah.
you're here with me. And I knew, like, I think if I hadn't had my faith, I don't know, I probably would have gone crazy. I probably would have maybe had thoughts of suicide or something, but my faith in the Lord was what got me through this, you know? And yeah, I mean, she hasn't changed. She hasn't
Yeah.
changed.
Well, like you said, it's made you a different person. It's made you a different person. I
Definitely.
think it's strengthened your faith. Use that dream. My God, people I want to have experiences like that. Like earlier you said, God pulled you out of your body. Did you have like a literal out of body experience where you saw your body and all that?
I did when it was coming to hit me. Like I told you, I don't remember the actual impact, but it to me, like I was out of my body, and then I could see when I was laying on my side, I can see my body, and then at that time, then that's when I felt like it was like like God doesn't want you to feel pain, and I didn't feel any of that pain, you
Wow.
know like I remember just everything, every feeling, every fear, every the warmth of my blood coming out, just the weakness, the just everything. It's just, yeah, I mean, I sometimes I wish I didn't, but then maybe I do know all of this because remember all this because I'm able to share it, with
Yeah,
other
yeah.
people, you know
A lot of people always ask like to prove God, to ask, to is God real? And I think that's how God talks to us. I think that's how God shows himself to us, just through these experiences. Because it's usually when we're at our lowest that we're most open to new ideas, to new experiences. And that, man, you can't get any lower than that. I mean, geez.
No. And I never, when this happened to me, I never blamed God. Like, why did you allow this to happen? No, because I always said, God used me, like I
Yeah,
always wanted to be used by him. And so I never blamed God or anything. But again, I always thought, okay, God used me for her.
yeah,
And it wasn't. It was a gift for me. This has been a blessing for me.
yeah,
And I was supposed to be a vegetable. I was supposed to be paralyzed from my right side. I was supposed to be disabled at 34 years old, when
yeah,
when all this whole thing had, my workers' comp thing had settled. And it was like, I told myself, no, I'm not. God's going to give me the strength. I'm going to go back to work. And if I fail, then at least I tried. But I'm not going to be deemed disabled. I'm not. I don't know. I just never had the victim mentality. It was always like, I'm going to get through this. And, I always wish, like, from my sisters, my family, like if I could take on any burden that somebody has, like I want to, because I know that I'll be okay, and I work full time now,
Yeah.
I was able to get a new house. I am able to provide for my kids by myself as a single mom. And finances, like, when I was going through all that, I have a great support system. But, money was tight. I was always on a strict budget, and it was like, okay, I know my time's going to come. I know my time's going to come. And it's true, beauty from the ashes, because now it's like, I have my nice house, that's paid off. I have my, I'm able to put my kids in private school. I'm able, like, I don't have to worry about that. And it's all because of the grace of God,
Yeah. Yeah.
and now I know, like, I can share my testimony with other people so that they know, what, God is real, and don't give up hope. I beat all the odds. Look at me. I mean, I'm working, like, that's a main thing, that I'm working full time, and the job that I do carry is very stressful. And all I use is my brain when it comes to it. And I mean, I'm not going to say I don't have any residuals, because I do. I've learned to live my new normal, and with a lot of therapy, I learned to know what my triggers are for my PTSD, because I do have triggers still. I do get anxiety sometimes when I drive. If I don't get enough sleep, I do have memory issues, my brain gets foggy. My speech still gets, you know, affected sometimes too. But people are not going to think that, because my hair grew back,
Yeah.
like you can't see my scar, but it's there, and
Yeah.
that's one thing that I've learned. We all have a story, you know, and just, because somebody may be smiling, you don't know what they went through, and I'm usually a happy person and very positive, and people look at me, you would never think that I went through this journey, through
Yeah.
this trial,
Yeah,
you know.
that's primarily why I'm doing this, because everybody's got a story.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody's life, everybody has been through something. And I believe that in having these conversations, I'm learning. I know for sure we've learned as a family. We got closer together through your experience. We
Right.
started talking more because of what happened
Uh-huh.
to you. We started coming together and doing things for each other more to make sure that everyone was covered.
Yeah.
So I know as a family, your experience has strengthened us and brought us closer together. So these stories that you and everyone else has, I want to share them with everybody. I want to share them with as many people as possible, because I know these stories are going to touch people's lives. They're going to change people's lives. Like, do you remember the rehabilitation process? Like, what kept you going? I'm sure them telling you, the doctor saying you're going to be a vegetable, had to have some kind of effect on you. What made you drive past that?
I mean, I did go through my depression and my anxiety. I was blessed that through my workers' comp, they gave me all the help. I mean, I'm
Oh,
talking nothing was ever denied. I had a great triage nurse that was by my side at every appointment for my workers' comp, and they gave me everything that I needed. When I was first sent to the rehabilitation center, transitional living center, and I was living there, I mean, it was scary. Like, I remember the ambulance dropping me off at the place that I was living at in Pomona, and it was they put me on the side with all men, and mind you, these are all people with brain injuries, okay?
yeah,
And I was put on that side by myself, not knowing how to speak, still going through my depression. And I remember how lonely it was. I'm not going to sit here and be like, oh no, I'm fine now and this and that. No, it was hard. But I'll tell you, like, I just knew the next day is going to be better. I had kids. I have to beat this. Like, there was no option for me.
yeah,
I was gonna make this. I was gonna get through this, and I'm gonna go back home. I'm gonna see my kids. I'm gonna start walking again. I'm one of my, like, a simple goal from my physical therapist. I told her I've always played basketball my life. I want to be able to shoot a basket. That was my goal for me before I left. And what did we do on the last week? They took me to the park. We played a game of horse with several other patients, and I beat everybody. Like, I was
nice.
like, oh my God. But yeah, I
You
mean,
know, so goals,
it was,
goals is what kept you going.
yeah, it was just, just moving forward. Like, okay, now I'm going to learn how to cook a meal for my kids. So they had the occupational therapist there, giving me, exercises, because my right side, I wasn't paralyzed. I didn't end up paralyzed, but it is weaker, and I'm right hand dominant.
Yeah,
But they had to give me exercises, and they had to teach me how, to favor my left hand. my balance is still really off. I mean, if I don't look at what I'm holding, I might drop it. Like I dropped a lot of glasses and everything,
Yeah.
but they were teaching me how to live my new normal,
Yeah.
and I went to therapy. Like I never tried to act like I wasn't. It was okay to be not okay, and I gave myself grace, like, and that's the thing. Like I just knew I was not going to be defeated by this.
Did you set short-term goals or long-term goals, or just every day you had new goals?
No, it was short-term goals. Like
Okay.
even now to this day, I don't have long-term goals.
Oh
I don't
wow,
live
I
my
didn't know
life
that.
like that. I don't. It's, people always say, live your life like it's your last. I really do live my life like it's my last.
Yeah.
Because my life changed in a second. I left home that day and then that was it. But yeah, I mean, tell people you love them, forgive. I always say love freely and forgive easily, you know. Don't live with that anger in your heart because that can kill you alone.
Yeah. I thought people forgiveness is for
Yeah,
us.
it's
It's
for
not.
us,
It's not for
yes.
the other person.
And I always tell
Yeah.
people if I can forgive the girl who almost took my life, I can forgive anybody.
Yeah.
Honestly, everything else is just very minute to me.
Yeah.
And all that energy, negative energy that you waste, you're never going to get that time back.
Yeah.
If I had sit there and had a pity party for myself through all these years, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now for
Yeah.
sure. Because a lot of, I'm part of a brain injury support group and everything. And I tell people the mind, like your mind is very powerful. And if you just don't have that victim mentality and give yourself grace, tomorrow's a new day and you can get better.
What support group do you belong with? What's the name of it?
It's just traumatic brain injury survivors, yeah. And I've also been, part of anxiety support groups and stuff. And even when I show up to these support groups, people look at me like, you don't have a brain injury or, you know, you know, like they look at, we base what we look like,
Yeah.
right? And they're like, no, you didn't go through that. And I'm like, I did, until I worked with a neuro optometrist as well. And he was actually prescribed these special glasses for me when I drive to help me with my PTSD. Because I always have to look at like where the door is. Like I'm telling you, I live my new normal, like you cannot walk up to me because I'm just gonna either shut down or I'm gonna start swinging or something because I'm gonna be scared,
I'll bring it comes back.
you
Get
know.
out the way.
But usually when I have my triggers, I remove myself from them,
Yeah.
like I because I know people aren't gonna, I mean, you could see it in my face, like when I have like anxiety or I feel unsafe. But, I mean, I have to communicate with whoever I'm with, or, if I'm dating somebody, I have to let them know too. I'm very transparent. I'm very transparent. It's like, it's not that my brain injury defines me, but it is part of me.
Yeah.
And I have to share that, with whoever I'm with. Like, I need to feel safe with you, in order to be vulnerable, I need to feel safe. Wherever I'm at, I need to feel safe,
Yeah.
and so I have to let people know, what if I have a serious migraine and I have to cancel on you last minute or something, like you have to understand, like, this is part of my life. Yeah, it's just giving yourself grace and staying positive.
That awareness that you mentioned right now, most people don't have that awareness. Most people, we just kind of go through our lives based on what comes at us. How long did it take you to develop that awareness about what's coming up next, to feel it, to identify it, to what to do with it?
I think it took me, I want to say like 9 years.
Wow.
And the reason why I say that is because the 9 year mark was really important for me because that's when my workers' comp actually settled. And prior to that, it was just a big emotional roller coaster. It was like if I took, 3 steps forward, we would have a meeting with the attorneys and they would take me back like 9 steps back. And then I would be depressed again and I would cry and everything. So it was kind of like, I don't know, like my life was on a standstill for all those 9 years.
Was it their attorneys that interviewed you, or was it just
Their attorneys, yeah,
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 the
and
opposing attorneys are always suck.
that was hard for me. People
Yeah.
don't understand. Like, we'd have to go, and I would think, okay, this is a day this is gonna settle, and then they would depose me and ask me questions and make it seem like it was my fault.
That's what they did.
Like I could have done something to prevent this. When mind you, I mean, I don't even know if I told you she was holding the rock for 20 minutes before she even threw it at me, with 2 therapists on each side of her. They could have prevented this. All of this could have been prevented. But would have, could have, should have, it happened, you
Yeah.
know? And to me, I have to look at it as a blessing because, you know what, I'm here now. You know, I don't live with regrets. I don't ever say, oh, I shouldn't have worked there. I shouldn't have, you know, no. Because I'm happy with who I am now. I'm happy where I'm at now. And I'm very grateful for that. And none of that, if any of that had changed, I wouldn't be where I'm at right now.
Yeah, the hope is what you've always given me.
Mm-hmm.
Hope is what you've that's what I've heard mentioned by a lot of people around you. Um, what would you tell people that want to give up, that want to not move forward? Like, what would you say to them? What would you tell them? How could you get them to nudge them forward?
I would say don't let whatever it is holding you back, don't give that power, you know. And number one, you have to have your faith in God. You really
Yeah, faith in
do.
something. Yeah,
You have to have faith because that's what gives you hope, you know. You're not going to see it. You're not going to see the, you know, what's in front of you, but if you have that faith, you're going to know that that hope is there and that you're going to be okay, you know. You have to believe in something. I mean, I believe in God, but, you know, if I didn't have that, I would be completely lost, completely. I would have been defeated. But again, I don't have that victim mentality, you know, like, and it's okay to not be okay, but tomorrow's a new day, you
yeah,
know? And I've had my share. I had a lot of those days where I was like, "Oh, I don't want to get out of bed. I don't want to talk to anybody, you know, I don't want to be around people, you know, I just don't feel good." But
is every day a struggle like that?
you know what? Every day is a choice, right? And I
Wow, what a
just
good way
look
to
at
put
it
it.
every day, I choose to be happy.
Yeah,
That's it. For me, like, and you know, I find myself surrounded by people who just need that hope, right? Like
yeah.
I don't know, I for some reason they gravitate towards me, but
Because it's a great story.
maybe that's my
Why?
purpose,
What do you mean
right?
why? Because you've overcome so
But
much.
I always tell people like you have that choice. Wake up, and just waking up and taking that breath, believe me, that's enough to be happy.
Yeah,
You know, I have a roof over my head. Like that's what I do is gratitude. I wake up and I lay in bed and I'm sitting there for 5, 10 minutes and just thanking God for everything. You know, I might not want to go to work, but you know what? I get to go to work, and I get, you know, I get to provide for my kids. You know, but yeah, I mean, I get to breathe. I get to walk again. I get to, you know, even when I get lazy, you know, because my job is just sitting down all day. But I think to myself, oh man, I got to get up. Why I get to walk? Because I remember being in the hospital in a wheelchair. I remember they had to teach me how to use a wheelchair. Then I was in a walker. Then I was with a cane. You know, I remember being judged based on what I looked like when I was in the wheelchair and my head was wrapped in a bandana because I had to shave my head, you know,
yeah, yeah,
and people judging me on, oh, well, what happened to her? You know,
yeah.
like everybody makes their story, but you don't know.
Your perspective is amazing. The way you view things, um, just I'm so impressed by it. It's I just you really are an inspiration, and that's why I wanted you to tell your story because it's helped me. It's helped countless people around us. So I'm so grateful for you and thank you so much for being here for doing this.
Oh, well,
I
thank
know you live like 32 hours away from me, so, so it took you 2 days on airplane to get here. So I know I'm so grateful. Thank you so much. Um, we answered most of these questions and just talking. So, but there's something I wanted to that I'm kind of curious about. What would you tell men who who have partners who have had such an experience, who had life altering experiences like that? What advice would we could we give to men to help their experience with their partner? What would you tell them? What would you say to them?
Um, I would say first listen, you know, and be transparent, you know, like just show compassion to their trauma. Don't judge them. You know, I think we're all broken in some sense or have gone through something.
Yeah,
You know, may not be as traumatic as what I went through. I mean, everybody has their level of trauma, right? And in different life experiences. But I think if we just take the time to listen and don't judge, I think, you know, we can all learn from that. You know, I mean, it's been, I won't lie to you, like for me, the dating life has been really challenging.
um,
And I say this because if you haven't been through something that's traumatic, it's hard to share that perspective in life, you know. I've dated a lot of people who have been negative, you know, and they don't I don't know, they don't understand how I can be happy or how can I,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
and it's kind of like, they try
Tell
to
me their
bring
names so I
me,
could go scratch their tires. I want to
you
get
know,
them.
and
I'm
so they,
joking. I'm joking. I'm not going to do that.
they try to like bring me down in a sense, and I will not allow that.
Yeah,
I can't, not only because I don't want it, but it's bad for my health,
yeah,
like I don't want to get stuck in that, but again, I know we all have our bad days, but I mean, just listen to each other, give each other grace, and love, just love. Like, it's not that hard to love. Like, put your walls down, let's all be vulnerable and transparent and just love freely, put the effort in relationships, like it's not just going to be okay by itself. Like, you need to water it, take that time to listen to each other, what your needs are. I don't have a problem expressing my needs whatsoever, and it's not like I accept or expect a lot. But if I'm not feeling good, then all I need is for somebody to say, hey, what can I do for you? you know
yeah.
like, just talk about it, communicate, and don't run away. Don't run
Yeah,
away.
that's a tough one because people, not just men, but people in general, when things get difficult, we have a tendency to just leave, to just go away. We don't want to struggle through that stuff. So that's a tough one. That's a great advice. Um, God, thank you so much. I know it's been difficult for you, talking about this, but thank you so much. I really believe, I cannot say it really enough times, that this is going to be beneficial. This is
Thank
going to
you for
help
having me.
somebody, because your story is a story of hope. It is a strong story. It's a story about not giving up, about perception and how
Hmm.
we decide to see things.
Yes.
So I I'm so proud of you, and I'm built by you. So I just
Thank
want to tell
you.
you that, guys. I love you.
Thank you. I love you.
Well, thank you for watching. I hope that we've all grown. We've all seen a little bit of ourselves in the story, and that we can grow past whatever challenges that we have. And again, I'm trying to build a space for people to ask questions that they may need help on, advice on. Put it in the comments, and either I'll address it or the people I have a conversation with will address it. So thank you. And if you've appreciated and enjoyed it, please hit that like and subscribe button. Again, thank you. I love everybody.